Hello, everyone. My name is Father Ted Trinko. I'm a contemplative priest of the Incarnate Word serving in Maryland of the United States. Today is March 21st, Friday of the second week of Lent. And in our gospel today, we read, Jesus said to the chief priests and the elders of the people, "Hear another parable. There was a landowner who planted a vineyard, put a hedge around it, dug a wine press in it, and built a tower. Then he leased it to tenants and went on a journey. When the vintage time drew near, he sent his servants to the tenants to obtain his produce. But the tenants seized the servants, and one they beat, another they killed, and a third they stoned. Again he sent other servants, more numerous than the first ones, but they treated them in the same way. Finally he sent his son to them, thinking, 'They will respect my son.' But when the tenants saw the son, they said to one another, 'This is the heir. Come, let us kill him and acquire his inheritance.' They seized him, threw him out of the vineyard, and killed him. What will the owner of the vineyard do to those tenants when he comes?" They answered him, "He will put those wretched men to a wretched death, and lease his vineyard to other tenants, who will give him the produce at the proper times." Jesus said to them, "Did you never read in the Scriptures, 'The stone that the builders rejected has become the cornerstone. By the Lord has this been done, and it is wonderful in our eyes.' Therefore I say to you, the kingdom of God will be taken away from you and given to a people that will produce its fruit." When the chief priests and the Pharisees heard his parables, they knew that he was speaking about them. And although they were attempting to arrest him, they feared the crowd, for they regarded him as a prophet. Once there were 3 trees on the top of a hill overlooking a small valley. These trees were discussing their hopes and dreams. The first tree said, "Someday I hope to be a treasure chest. I want to be filled with gold, silver, and precious gems. I'll be decorated with intricate carvings, and everyone will see my beauty." The second tree spoke next. "Someday I will be a mighty ship. I will take kings and queens across the seas and sail to the far corners of the earth. Everyone will feel safe in me because of the strength of my hull." Finally, the third tree said, "I want to stay right here and grow to be the tallest tree in the forest. People will look up to my branches as I stand on this hill and think of heaven and how close I am to God. I will be the greatest tree of all time, and people will always remember me." After a few years, a group of lumberjacks came upon the trees. When one of them came to the first tree, he said, "This looks like a strong and beautiful tree. I think I would be able to sell this tree to a carpenter." And he began to cut the tree down. The tree was very happy because he knew that a carpenter could make him into a treasure chest, just as he had dreamed. At the second tree, another woodcutter spoke. "This looks like a strong tree, too. I should be able to sell this tree to a shipyard." The second tree was even happier than the first tree because he knew that he was on his way to becoming a mighty ship. When the other woodcutter saw the tree was frightened because he heard the woodcutter say, "I don't have any special need for this tree, but I'll just cut it down and see later if I have any need of it." The third tree thought his dreams would never come true now. But all 3 of them were in for a surprise. When the first tree arrived at the carpenter's, he was surprised to be made into a simple feed box for animals. He was placed in a barn and filled with hay so the animals could eat out of him. This was not what the first tree had dreamed of, and he was very disappointed. The second tree was taken to the shipyard, but he wasn't made into a large ship. He became a plain fishing boat with only the strength to carry a few fishermen. His dreams of being a mighty ship carrying kings and queens across the seas faded away. The third tree was cut up into large, ugly beams and then left all alone in the darkness. Many years went by, and all 3 trees forgot about their hopes, their dreams. Finally, one day, a man and a woman came to the barn to stay because there was no room anywhere else. The woman gave birth to a baby boy while she was there, and she placed him in the hay in that plain, simple feed box. The man wished he could have made a proper crib for the baby, but this feed box would have to do. Somehow, the first tree felt the importance of this event and knew that he had indeed held the greatest treasure of all time. Some years later, a group of men got into the small fishing boat made from the timber of the second tree. One of them was tired and fell fast asleep. A great storm came up, and the second tree did not think he was strong enough to keep the men safe from drowning. The other men in the fishing boat then woke the man who was asleep, who said, "Peace," and the storm suddenly stopped. Now the second tree knew he had indeed carried the King of Kings. About 3 years later, someone came and pulled the third tree's beams from the dark shed. It was carried through the streets as the people mocked the man who was carrying it. When they came to a stop on the top of a small hill, they nailed the man to the beams made from the tree. Then they raised the beams into the air and left the man there to die. The tree shuddered in shame. When Sunday morning came, though, the third tree suddenly came to realize that it was indeed strong enough to stand on the top of a hill for all to see and know that he was closer to heaven than he could have ever imagined. In our first reading for today's Mass, we heard about Joseph, whose dreams seemed shattered when his brothers sold him into slavery. But it was precisely through that apparent shattering of his dreams, through that evil deed, that God was working out the way of salvation for his chosen people. The lengthy time which Joseph spent as a slave was all part of God's plan. He was preparing Joseph for a special role in salvation history. Even from the human perspective, we can see why Joseph was there for so many years. As a Hebrew, he would have to learn the Egyptian language and the customs of the royal household. But Joseph wouldn't have understood this at the time. When he's serving as a slave, he would have to trust in God and keep going forward. And notice too that God even works through the evil deed and the sin of Joseph's brothers. At the end, Joseph doesn't pass this over when he speaks to his brothers, saying, "Even though you meant to harm me, God meant it for good." In other words, what Joseph tells his brothers is, what you did was wrong, sinful, and evil. Nevertheless, even that God used for the good of accomplishing his end. In our lives too, God's ways might seem twisted and confusing. It might seem like our dreams are being shattered. It's not always clear what God is up to. He's allowing evil people to do evil things to us. Yet, we have the certainty that whatever happens, God means it for our good. And we have to trust that he does, even if it involves suffering. He will use these circumstances of our lives to achieve his plan, which is ultimately what is best for us and the rest of the world. And so let's not be discouraged when things seem to go awry, when things seem to go wrong, but let's practice that trust in God, knowing that he can take our dreams and do something much greater with them than we could have ever hoped to accomplish on our own.
If you found this video fruitful, please feel free to share it with a friend or family member. Or if you would like to learn more about our missionary priests throughout the world and how to support them, please visit iveamerica.org. Thank you for watching, and God bless.